Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's latest coverage of this upcoming mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us here on this Saturday morning. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Hope you're all having a good start to the weekend. And for folks there on the West Coast, thanks for getting up early with us for this Falcon 9 flight. 28 Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites are once again on board this particular Falcon 9 rocket that's getting ready to head out on a southeasterly trajectory, heading along the coasts of California and Mexico once it makes its ascent from Vandenberg Space Force Base. As we're getting going this morning, I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Certainly appreciate all of you who are up with us live at this point in the show. Got a little more than 600 of you watching along with us. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. Also want to thank our mod in the chat. Got Rick Donner with us this morning. And if you do see any of the other moderators cruise on in throughout the course of the countdown, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. Our thanks as well to one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat. Speaking of channel members, this and every other live launch opportunity is made possible in no small part thanks to the wonderful ongoing support from our channel members. So thanks to folks like Meg McElroy, the Rocket Girl, Space Coast Rocket Launches, Sherry, Bonnie Long, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. SpaceX currently fueling its Falcon 9 rocket there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. The T0 time is what you see here on your screen, 7:20 a.m. Pacific, 10:20 a.m. Eastern, 14:20 UTC. It is a characteristically Vandenberg type morning, and what I mean by that is there's some fog that we're expecting to have the pad somewhat socked in. So we're anticipating not the grandest of views once we do have visibility at Vandenberg, I'll say it like that, when the cameras become available to us. Currently 26 minutes, 12 seconds and counting. Looks like visibility is a little bit better inland, but there is that cloud bank that's kind of hugging the coastline, which is right. It's along the trajectory track, so hopefully some folks will get a decent-ish view, but if you don't see anything spectacular this morning, fair warning, don't be surprised. One last little bit of housekeeping as we roll on through the count. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space or spaceflight, or like Chuck Close, want to just offer a little bit of support this morning, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting us and what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. So thanks to the aforementioned channel member Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Really appreciate that, Chuck. Thank you for your support this morning. Good to see you. Also, thanks to Robert Philpott for a £2 super chat saying, great. A live launch. Hi from Sussex in the UK. Well, hello from the Sunshine State. Our photographers, of course, have this morning off, given this is a West Coast venture, but SpaceX keeping things ever busy at seemingly all times. We'll have our crew up and raring to go for a launch that's coming up, scheduled for tomorrow morning. And you can always head over to our website anytime, day or night, that's spaceflightnow.com. Click that launch schedule tab, and that way you'll be notified, or you can check in to see when we've got a launch to cover. So coming up tomorrow morning at about 10:05, as things currently stand, is when SpaceX is set to launch the Starlink 10-21 mission from Space Launch Complex 40. 10 minute T minus 22 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. SpaceX has gone through a number of its fueling milestones so far. Let's go ahead and catch you up on what is still outstanding before the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket this morning. Of course, the go-ahead for fueling was granted at about T minus 38 minutes, and tanking began at T minus 35 minutes, loading RP1, a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began flowing on board the rocket's booster. T minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX started to load a cryogenic helium on board the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage. Same is true on the second stage a few minutes afterwards. That helium is important, of course, because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T minus 23 minutes is when second stage RP1 loading wrapped up. Coming up next is the strong back chill down process. That's when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad prior to upper stage liquid oxygen load. How do we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point in the count? We would be seeing the so-called big vent beginning about T minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. That roughly 4-minute vent wraps up. Set the stage 4. That locks to flow at T minus 16 minutes. Moving right along, T minus 7 minutes in the count is when the Falcon 9 engine chill begins. SpaceX flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence. The clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, will recline 13 degrees here at Vandenberg and stay in that position up to and through liftoff. Then at 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage about a minute afterwards. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will then give their final confirmation that they are go for launch. T minus 45 seconds. The Engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, targeting the time you see here on your screen, 7:20 a.m. Pacific, 10:20 a.m. Eastern, 14:20 UTC for our friends around the world. Just under 19 minutes to go before this Falcon 9 rocket takes flight. The Falcon booster that is supporting today's mission has the tail number B1081 in the SpaceX fleet. Not quite enough flights so far to make it into the frequent flyers club. Of course, we just saw the expiration of B1076, which made its 22nd and final flight after launching from here in Florida. B1081 is going to be making its 19th trip to space and back today. One of the notable parts about this mission on tap is that SpaceX, as of right now, is currently tied with the total number of orbital launches they achieved in all of 2024. Today, they break that record and begin a new record every time that they launch one of their Falcon 9 rockets. The company had set a goal of reaching and surpassing at least 170 missions this year. We'll see how close to that they actually end up getting by the time all is said and done. You may have noticed that there has been essentially a halt in launches over at Launch Complex 39A, so not factoring that pad in, SpaceX will toggle back and forth between Slick 40 here in Florida, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and Space Launch Complex 4 East there in California. The goal of ramping up their launch cadence, aided in part by the approval from the Department of the Air Force and the Federal Aviation Administration to allow for up to 100 flights annually from Vandenberg. SpaceX had been granted an increase up to 70 previously, but now that cap has been lifted all the way up to 100 after an environmental assessment had been done, led by the Department of the Air Force. That 100 number can include up to 5 Falcon Heavy launches, which will be conducted from Slick 6 in the future. Part of approval for increasing their launch cadence also came with the green light to go ahead and reorganize that pad and create not only the launch infrastructure for Falcon 9s and Falcon Heavies, but also to establish a pair of landing zones in the vicinity of Slick 6. Under 16 minutes to go and the countdown timeline. At this point, SpaceX is now loading liquid oxygen on board the Falcon 9's upper stage. We briefly mentioned trajectory a little bit ago, but let's go ahead and talk about that with greater specificity. Taking a look at a Google Earth view of Space Launch Complex 4 East. You can see the landing zone just in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. After liftoff in just about 15 minutes from now, the Falcon 9 rocket will fly on a southeasterly trajectory, hugging the California and Mexico coastlines there. First stage booster B-1081 will target a touchdown on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. Stage separation on this mission set to happen about, roughly 2.5 minutes after liftoff, with the touchdown occurring just before the 8.5 minute mark in this flight. If all goes well with this booster recovery, that would be the 160th good touchdown on this particular drone ship and the 523rd booster landing to date. I mentioned that this is the 19th flight for this particular first stage booster. SpaceX still in the process of certifying its first stages up to 40 flights apiece. Same with its payload fairings, which will make their entry back down and splash in the waters of the Pacific Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. Once down in the waters, they'll be brought aboard one of the SpaceX recovery vessels, brought through the port of Long Beach, and then off to SpaceX facilities for refurbishing and turning around for future flights. Just about 13 minutes to go now before the launch of this Falcon 9. If you haven't already, by the way, I see we've got a little more than 1,300 of you watching along with us live. You could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage today. Talking about the payload that's on board this particular Falcon 9 rocket. Got 20 more of SpaceX's Starlink V2 mini optimized satellites. We were just talking before the broadcast started about the production rate for SpaceX and its satellite fleet. Just going back and checking that stat. As of the update provided by SpaceX during the the Starship Flight 10 mission, they noted that they have a production rate of about 70 satellites per week. Today's mission will be the 96th Starlink mission of the year so far. These V2 Mini optimized satellites are considerably lighter than their predecessor V2 minis. With their solar panels extended, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon Hall effect thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. They were built up in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. These satellites will be deployed at about 183 miles or 295 kilometers in altitude at a roughly 53-degree inclination. And for a sense of scale, there's a suited astronaut for size. Those are the V2 minis in the middle, and the forthcoming V3s, which will be launched using SpaceX's Starship rocket once it is in an operational configuration and can start deploying these satellites into low Earth orbit. SpaceX says it expects to launch about 60 satellites per batch on its Starship flights supporting the Starlink constellation, with about one satellite deploying per minute, so it takes about an hour to release the full stack once the deployment sequence begins. Of course, in the two most recent Starship launches, we did see the deployment of those simulator Starlink satellites so that SpaceX can get good operational data about what it's like to deploy something of that mass. Of course, those were following the suborbital trajectory of the ship upper stage, so those were not released into orbital space. Just under 10 minutes to go with the countdown timeline here, the Starlink 11-12 mission. Taking a look back at our live chat, want to thank channel member Space Pony for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that generosity, Space Pony. And to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Space Pony in the live chat if you haven't already. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership beyond the month you were just gifted. Also, for those asking about trajectory, we did already go over the trajectory map. This is a southeasterly mission. But as a reminder, the trajectory is always published in our video description box. So go ahead and scroll down just beneath the video and you can take a look at that there. I know the video description is a little bit more tricky in the mobile setting, but it's also there for your convenience. Also, let us know where you're watching from today, whether you're there in California or in Mexico. You see one of our channel members, Einlita, checking in from the Antelope Valley. Got Stino checking in from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. The Rocket Girl joining us from Quebec. Got Vancouver in the house, Tennessee, Southern California, of course. I saw someone from Ohio earlier. Nevada, Florida. Always great to learn a little bit more about where our international audience is checking in from. We're approaching 7 minutes before the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. Coming up in about 30 seconds is when SpaceX will start to flow a little bit of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. Before we get views of the Falcon 9 rocket, I want to remind folks that we do have a 24/7 live stream up on the channel that is called Launchpad Live. One of those views you can check in at any time is the progress on SpaceX's Starship Tower and new pad infrastructure out there at Launch Complex 39A. They've got some of the big cranes up and working to get that pad and configuration to support future Starship launches from here in Florida once the vehicle is in a good functioning order. Of course, they'll continue to do their test flights from down in Starbase, Texas. But Kiko Donchev, the vice president of launch at SpaceX, noted that they will bring Starship to Florida once they feel confident in its ability to perform operational missions as intended. Coming up on 6 minutes before the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket, though, from Vandenberg Space Force Base. At this point, the first stage RP-1 tank should be just about at flight levels. Views of the Falcon 9 rocket should be coming up here in the next minute or so. Again, as a reminder, we are anticipating it to be somewhat, if not very foggy there at the pad, so may not have the best visibility of the rocket in the final minutes prior to liftoff, but of course we will all see together. But here's the latest weather loop from NOAA's GOES West satellite. So it looks a little bit of a clearing there over the pad and the very end of the loop. So we'll see what we can see. We'll find out in about 20 seconds.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for strong back lower.
That brief avian cameo aside, we've got a not too bad view of the Falcon 9 rocket, actually. Expected it to be much more obscured by the
Strong
fog.
back lower has started.
Actually got a semi-decent view, although it does still look fairly foggy, and you know, the point of launch through liftoff may not be the most spectacular, but hopefully once it ascends above the fog marine layer, should have a hopefully somewhat decent view of the rocket. But let us know in the live chat what you're able to see during ascent. You can see those clamp arms, though, opening up in the transporter erector, or the strong back, now in motion. It'll recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. And here at Vandenberg, it stays in that position up to and through liftoff.
Stage
Just
1 LOX load is complete.
There you go, under 3 minutes, and first stage LOX load complete. We should hear a similar call on the second stage at about T-minus 2 minutes. Two minutes and counting.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million
Ground gas
pounds of
closeouts
propellant.
has started.
And as you just heard and can see, ground gas closeouts, referring to that venting you're seeing from the strong back, SpaceX releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
We're now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to make the call that they are in fact go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And with that good confirmation, we're going to step back on our commentary, listen along with you for the final 30 seconds, and join you once again on the other side.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Chamber pressure nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Vehicles supersonic. Max Q.
And some really nice views of the Falcon 9 ascending from Space Launch Complex 4 East. Vehicle passed through Max Q, as you just heard, coming up to MVAC chill.
MVAC chill.
That is the thermal conditioning of the Merlin vacuum engine on the Falcon 9's second stage. Looks like the Falcon tracking team having a good time with this mission today. Coming up on 2 minutes into flight here, and a few events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds, followed by stage separation, and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. The payload fairings will be jettisoned at about the 3-minute mark.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good calls, good visuals. You can see the hypersonic grid fins deploying. Fairing jettison is coming up next.
Bearing separation confirmed.
With the payload fairings jettisoned, they will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the booster will land on the drone ship. You can actually see a little bit of the plume there to the left of the grid fin in the box on the left-hand side of your screen, and just off the engine nozzle on the Falcon 9's upper stage. So some really nice lighting effects for this launch this morning. Now, a little more than 4 minutes into this mission. Coming up next is the start of the 3-engine entry burn with the booster. That'll dramatically slow the vehicle down as it targets a touchdown on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. Looks like the booster has reached its apogee on this mission, about 119 kilometers in altitude. Now starting to make its descent towards the drone ship. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to check it out yet, we published a video yesterday about the milestone for SpaceX crossing 10,000 Starlinks launched to date that they achieved this past Sunday. We had some good conversations with astronomer and expert orbital tracker Jonathan McDowell, as well as Caleb Henry, the director of research over at Quilty Space. So got a lot of good insight from them to help contextualize where SpaceX is with its Starlink program and what the future might look like as the V3s start to come online in 2026 as planned. Speaking about things that are coming up soon, we're just about to reach the 6-minute point in this launch. The entry burn is just about 10 seconds away.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And with the conclusion of that entry burn, coming up next is the start of the landing burn, which will take B-1081 all the way down to the planned soft landing on the drone ship. That landing burn set to begin in now less than a minute, right as we approach T+8 minutes in this count. Sounds like some folks in California were able to hear the Falcon 9 as it made its climb uphill, and just a little bit of a viewing there, but a lot of folks kind of socked in this morning.
Stage 1 transonic.
First stage booster now traveling below the speed of sound,
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
and the flight termination system on the upper stage has now been safed.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn. Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And a good recovery for B-1081. Some of its notable missions have included the Crew 7 launch to the International Space Station, CRS-29, NASA's PACE, as well as ESA's EarthCare.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Good wrap up of that first burn of the Merlin vacuum engine and confirmation of a nominal orbit insertion. All good callouts. This means the upper stage will continue to coast until about T+53 minutes and 47 seconds, and there will be a brief 2-second burn of that upper stage engine to circularize its orbit, setting things up for the Starlink satellites to be deployed at about T+1 hour and 39 seconds post liftoff. Before we go ahead and close things out with our mission stats, they currently stand. Want to thank channel member Virginia Pruitt for a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Virginia. Really appreciate your support this morning. Also, thanks to Rebecca Trocky, Apologies, Rebecca, if I've just completely botched your last name. But thanks for joining us with membership at the pad leader level. Glad to have you with us. And as a reminder, we do have a launch coming up here tomorrow morning at 10. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell icon. That way you'll be notified when we're getting ready to go live if there's a change to the T0 for that mission. With this launch today, this was, as mentioned, the 19th flight of the booster B-1081 in the SpaceX fleet. This was SpaceX's 552nd Falcon 9 launch to date, the 135th, a new record for orbital flights for SpaceX, now set in 2025. This was SpaceX's 167th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 158th orbital launch for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 226th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Take a look at the bar chart. See, we're now ticking past 2024. SpaceX setting new records with each Falcon flight. This was the 160th landing of a booster successfully on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, marking the 427th good drone ship landing for SpaceX and the 523rd Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 53rd orbital launch from California, the 142nd from U.S. soil, the 155th orbital launch from a U.S. rocket company, and the 242nd, apologies for the typo, launch around the world. There have been 5 orbital launch mishaps, and here is where the pie chart now currently stands. Of course, the next addition to this pie chart will be the launch of the HTV-X heading up to the International Space Station. And of course, we've got our launch from here in Florida. That's coming up on Sunday morning. The HTV-X launch aboard an H-3 rocket set to depart at 15 seconds UTC. So just past midnight in UTC time. That's just a hair past 8 o'clock here on the East Coast. 9 a.m. and 15 seconds in Japan. That orbital cargo vehicle heading to the International Space Station will be the first of its kind in the HTV-X line, said to be captured and birthed by JAXA astronaut Kimia Yui alongside NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. This will be a special moment for Japan and JAXA, since the last time Kimia Yui was at the International Space Station, he became the first Japanese astronaut to capture and berth an HTV cargo vehicle, and he will become the first JAXA astronaut and, well, the first astronaut ever to capture and help to berth the HTV-X, which was not only manufactured in Japan, but also manufactured and designed and developed with support from Kimia Yui himself, never imagining that one day he would have the opportunity to be on the International Space Station at the exact time that this vehicle would be arriving. So a very cool full circle moment for him. You can learn more about Kimia Yui and the other members of the Crew 11 mission. We did profile pieces for all of them through our interviews at the Johnson Space Center. You can find those at the YouTube channel right now, just by scrolling back a little bit further on the Videos tab. And with that, we're going to go ahead and sign off for today. Really appreciate your time and attention with this mission. And again, we look forward to welcoming you back when we're getting ready to cover the Starlink 10-21 mission on Sunday morning. Thanks to Deb hitting it at the buzzer with a $5 super chat saying thank you, Spaceflight Now. Hope Elon's next launch from Vandenberg is an early evening launch. I can actually answer that for you, and if you want to consider 4:34 to be early evening, I suppose that would be the case, but I think you mean like a closer to sunset launch, and unfortunately, as things currently stand, that's not going to be the case with this next launch, but I'm sure we'll get a sunset launch before too much longer at the pace SpaceX is going. Want to thank Rick Donner for helping us out in the live chat, for holding it down for us today as our moderator. Thanks to channel member Cumulus Granatus for helping to answer folks' questions in the chat as well. Big thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. We certainly appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you have a wonderful, relaxing, and safe weekend. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.